how these stones came to be there, why they were placed there, and specifically how they were transported into place, because some of the stones are of such magnitude that modern machinery is incapable of putting them there, but somehow our ancestors were able to do this.
Beneath the Roman temples at Baalbek, Lebanon, there is a structure that was never made by humans. Not figuratively, not metaphorically, the engineering proves it. In 2014, archaeologists pulled a single stone block from the earth, 19 meters long, 6 meters wide, nearly 6 meters deep. Weight, 1,650 tons, heavier than 3 Boeing 747 stacked together, heavier than the Statue of Liberty, the largest work stone ever found in human history. It was precision cut on 3 sides, abandoned mid-extraction, still fused to bedrock. No civilization in recorded history has ever documented moving anything this heavy. No Roman emperor claimed credit. No inscription exists, no record of any kind. And when researchers finally analyzed the foundation it was meant to join, what they found didn't just challenge ancient history, it dismantled it. The structure beneath Baalbek was built by someone.
The giant blocks in the foundation are clearly of a different building style than the temples that sit above. And in my opinion, that platform is not just ancient, it is prehistoric.
But every piece of evidence says it wasn't us. The deception. Every year, thousands of tourists visit Baalbek to photograph Roman columns. They admire the Temple of Jupiter. They snap pictures of ancient ruins and leave believing they've witnessed another triumph of classical civilization. They have no idea what they're standing on. The tour guides know. The archaeologists know. But nobody talks about the foundation. Because talking about the foundation opens questions that end careers. Beneath those temples sits a platform that shouldn't exist. Stone blocks so heavy our strongest cranes can't lift them. Joints so precise that laser-equipped engineers have measured them and walked away stunned. Seismic engineering so advanced we didn't develop anything comparable until the 1970s. And here's the catch. Zero documentation from the Romans who supposedly built it. Not a single inscription, not one commemorative coin, not a supply ledger, nothing. The Romans carved their names into everything. Every bridge, every aqueduct, every minor road repair, in every forgotten province. They were obsessed with taking credit. And yet, for the single greatest construction achievement in the ancient world, absolute silence. That silence isn't an accident, it's the first clue. Because the deeper researchers dig into this platform, the more one conclusion keeps forcing itself to the surface. Whoever built this foundation wasn't constructing a base for temples. They were engineering something on a scale that has nothing to do with human worship, human architecture, or human civilization as we understand it. So, if it wasn't built for us, who was it built for? The answer starts with a problem the Romans left behind. The Roman problem. The Romans arrived at Baalbek around 15 BC. They called it Heliopolis, the city of the sun. But archaeological evidence tells us this site stretches back 6,000 to 9,000 years before the first Roman soldier ever set foot in Lebanon. The Romans transformed it into one of their most ambitious temple complexes. The Temple of Jupiter once featured 54 columns standing 22 meters tall, each composed of 3 massive drum sections topped with elaborate Corinthian capitals. Classic Roman architecture everywhere you look. Intricate friezes, imperial grandeur at its finest. At its peak, Baalbek was one of the largest religious complexes in the Roman world. Emperors poured fortunes into its construction. Pilgrims traveled from across the empire to worship here. But here's the deal. The foundation those temples sit on uses completely different construction techniques, completely different scale, completely different engineering philosophy. Think about that for a second. The Romans were pathologically obsessed with documentation. We know exactly who commissioned the Colosseum. We know Hadrian rebuilt the Pantheon around 126 AD. Generals competed to attach their names to grand projects. The largest stone the Romans ever documented moving was roughly 300 tons, the Egyptian obelisks they transported to Rome. That was considered one of the most remarkable logistical achievements of the ancient world. Engineers wrote about it, poets celebrated it, emperors stamped it on coins. The Baalbek foundation stones are 5 times heavier, and nobody said a word. Dr. Klaus Schmidt spent 23 years studying ancient Near Eastern construction before his death in 2014. He was working at his desk at the German Archaeological Institute when a colleague asked him directly, "Why no Roman records?" Schmidt put down his pen, looked up. His answer was quiet, almost tired, like a man who'd spent decades arriving at a conclusion he wished he hadn't. The Romans documented everything. Their tax records survive. Their shopping lists survive. If they had moved these stones, we would have found 50 inscriptions celebrating it by now. He paused. The silence isn't mysterious. It's an answer. But the missing records were just the surface. What researchers found embedded in the Western Wall made everything the Romans ever built look like a child's first attempt with building blocks. The trilithon. They call it the trilithon. 3 stone blocks forming the western foundation wall, each one roughly 19 meters long, over 4 meters high, nearly 4 meters deep. Weight estimates, 800 to 1,000 tons per block. Let those numbers land. The largest stones in the Great Pyramid weigh about 80 tons. Stonehenge's megaliths, around 25 tons. The Parthenon's marble blocks, roughly 10 tons. The trilithon blocks are 10 times heavier than the pyramids, 40 times heavier than Stonehenge, nearly 100 times heavier than the Parthenon. And they're not on the ground. Someone lifted them 7 meters into the air and positioned them with millimeter precision. The joints between these megaliths are so tight, you cannot slide a piece of paper between them. No mortar, no filler, just stone meeting stone with accuracy that makes modern surveyors deeply uncomfortable. Dr. Jean-Pierre Adam, a French archaeologist who spent 3 years documenting this site, knew Roman construction better than almost anyone alive. Every technique, every tool mark, every shortcut the Romans used across their empire. He'd seen it all, cataloged it all, published papers on it for decades. When he examined the trilithon, he set his equipment down slowly, didn't speak for a while, then turned to his team. "This isn't Roman. I don't know what this is, but I know what it isn't." Professor Daniel Lohmann from the German Archaeological Institute had 40 years of engineering experience across 3 continents: bridges, dams, high-rise buildings. He measured the joints with laser equipment, then measured again, then brought entirely different equipment, same numbers. The tolerances were tighter than what modern engineers achieve in bridge construction using diamond-tipped cutting tools and computer guidance. He stood there, staring at the readout, while his colleagues watched his face change. "Whoever did this," he told them quietly, "either had technology we don't know about, or patience beyond anything we can imagine." He let that sit. Either option changes everything we think we know. And if you think precision like that is disturbing, what was sitting in a quarry 800 meters away made these men wish they'd never started digging. The quarry discovery. In 2014, a German-Lebanese archaeological team was conducting routine excavations near the ancient quarry. Standard survey work. Nothing unusual expected. Then their ground-penetrating radar hit something massive. Dr. Janine Abdul Masih, head of Lebanon's archaeological mission, ordered her team to keep digging. What they expected to take days stretched into weeks. The stone kept going and going. When they finally mapped its full dimensions, the site went quiet. Nobody spoke for several minutes. They were looking at a single stone block, over 19 meters long, 6 meters wide, nearly 6 meters deep. Estimated weight, 1,650 tons, still attached to bedrock. Abandoned mid-extraction, precision cut on 3 sides, ready for transport that never came. Dr. Abdul Masih later described the moment, her voice still carrying disbelief years after the discovery. They kept thinking their measurements must be wrong. Measured again, different equipment, numbers didn't change. They were standing next to the largest worked stone in human history, and nobody knew it was there. But here's where it gets truly unsettling. This wasn't the only abandoned megalith. Nearby sat the famous stone of the pregnant woman, another 1,000-ton block that had puzzled researchers for centuries. And beneath the 2014 discovery, they found a third massive stone, even larger than the first. Someone quarried these stones. Someone cut them with surgical precision using methods we still can't identify. Someone had a detailed plan to move them nearly a kilometer across uneven terrain and lift them into position alongside the others. And then they just stopped, mid-project, tools down, walk away, never came back. What catastrophe interrupts work of this magnitude? What disaster strikes so suddenly that you leave your greatest achievement half-finished in the dirt? What could possibly force an advanced civilization to abandon stones they spent months, maybe years, preparing? If you're still watching, it's because these questions are doing the same thing to you that they did to the research teams. They don't let go. Hit subscribe right now, because what engineers found when they ran the actual math on moving these stones makes everything you've heard so far sound like the easy part. The engineering impossibility. Let's talk about what moving these stones would actually require. Not theories, not speculation. Cold engineering reality. The largest mobile cranes operating today, the kind used to build skyscrapers and assemble offshore oil platforms, max out around 1,200 tons under perfect conditions. Flat prepared ground, stable, foundations. Teams of engineers monitoring every micro movement. Even the world's most powerful fixed crane installations would struggle with the largest Baalbek stones. The ancient builders had no steel cables, no hydraulic systems, no wheels capable of handling this weight, no prepared roads. Bronze Age tools at best, and get this. The terrain between the quarry and temple site is rocky, uneven, riddled with gullies and natural obstacles, completely unsuitable for rolling heavy loads. Some researchers suggested wooden roller systems using cedar logs. An 800-ton stone would crush any wooden roller almost instantly. You'd need continuous replacement, thousands of logs, and up to 40,000 laborers pulling in perfect synchronization with rope systems stronger than anything we have evidence for. A small city, flawless coordination, months on end, uphill, zero mistakes. And that's just horizontal transport. Lifting them 7 meters into the air, positioning them with millimeter accuracy against existing megaliths, that's a different problem entirely. Dr. Robert Schoch, a geologist from Boston University who spent decades studying ancient construction, ran the numbers multiple times, changed variables, tried different models. Every calculation ended the same way. He closed his laptop and leaned back. The math doesn't work. No matter how many laborers you throw at the problem, no matter how much time you allow, the physics don't permit what we're seeing. Something else was happening here, something our models can't account for. But the impossible logistics were just one layer. What a German engineer found carved into the stone surfaces changed the entire conversation. The tool mark mystery. Dr. Gerhard Koppler is a German engineer who spent 11 months analyzing tool marks on the foundation stones. His specialty, identifying ancient construction techniques through surface analysis. What he found made him go very quiet for a very long time. The cutting. Patterns don't match Roman techniques, period. When Romans cut stone, they left characteristic chisel marks, distinct patterns, consistent angles, predictable spacing. Every Roman site in the empire shows the same signatures. Archaeologists recognize them the way detectives recognize handwriting. The Baalbek megaliths show completely different marks, smooth faces, uniform surfaces, tool signatures suggesting abrasive cutting methods or wire saw technology that we have zero evidence the Romans ever possessed. And here's what kept Koppler up at night. The surfaces are too smooth. Modern diamond wire saws leave microscopic striations, tiny parallel scratches visible under magnification. The Baalbek stones show almost none. He sat with his findings for weeks before writing his conclusion. Colleagues said he rewrote it 4 times, each version more carefully worded, as if he knew what it meant but didn't want to be the one to say it. His final assessment: someone cut these stones with technology we cannot identify. This isn't a gap in our knowledge of Roman tools. This is evidence of methods that shouldn't exist in the ancient world. But the tool marks weren't the last shock. What ground-penetrating radar revealed about how the foundation actually behaves during earthquakes made the entire research team go silent. Because it meant whoever built this didn't just move impossible stones. They understood forces of nature that we only figured out 50 years ago. The seismic secret Lebanon sits on one of the most seismically active fault lines in the Mediterranean. The Dead Sea Transform runs directly through the region. Major earthquakes have devastated the area repeatedly over millennia, collapsing cities, reshaping coastlines, killing tens of thousands. The Roman columns above the foundation have toppled multiple times throughout history. Only 6 of the original 54 remain standing today. Those required modern stabilization with steel reinforcement. The key megalithic foundation hasn't budged. Let that register. Over 2,000 years of seismic activity. Earthquakes that leveled entire cities around it. And not a single massive stone has shifted, cracked, or moved measurably from its original position. When researchers investigated why, 3-dimensional laser scanning revealed something that shouldn't exist. The stones interlock using a sophisticated system that allows controlled micro-movement during earthquakes without structural failure. The joints flex slightly and just enough to absorb seismic energy, then settle back into position, like the foundation breathes. Modern engineers call this base isolation. We consider it the gold standard of earthquake-resistant design. We developed it in the 1970s. Someone at Baalbek implemented it thousands of years ago, at a scale we still couldn't match today. Dr. Marwan Nasser, a structural engineer from the American University of Beirut, participated in the scanning project. When the data came back, he sat with it for days before speaking publicly. His colleagues noticed he kept pulling up the same scans, running the same comparisons, as though hoping the numbers would eventually make sense in a framework he understood. They never did. His public statement was measured but devastating. They designed modern earthquake-resistant buildings using principles they thought they invented. These builders knew those principles millennia before us, and implemented them with stones that weigh more than our cranes can lift. So, who understood seismic engineering before seismology even existed? The answer nobody wants to say out loud starts with the stones themselves, and how old they actually are. The uncomfortable theory. Here's the evidence that keeps archaeologists awake at 3 in the morning. The weathering patterns on the foundation stones show significantly more erosion than the Roman structures sitting directly on top of them. This isn't subjective, it's measurable, it's demonstrable. The foundation is physically, chemically, provably older than the temples above it. That single finding demolishes the conventional narrative. An unknown civilization built this platform, possibly during the Bronze Age, possibly earlier. They possessed engineering knowledge that was subsequently lost, perhaps through catastrophic collapse of their society. Centuries or millennia later, the Romans discovered this foundation already in place and simply built their temples on top, never understanding how it was made, never able to replicate it, and it gets worse. The scale of this foundation is wildly disproportionate to any known temple structure from any civilization in history. Nothing comes close. The engineering sophistication exceeds the documented capabilities of every ancient culture by thousands of years. And the construction halted abruptly. Precision-cut stones abandoned in the quarry like workers fled mid-shift. Graham Hancock, who has spent decades investigating lost civilizations, has pointed to Baalbek as one of the most compelling sites on Earth. Evidence that a sophisticated civilization predating all known ancient cultures once existed, and that mainstream archaeology has been reluctant to follow the evidence. Whether you agree with Hancock or not, the physical data doesn't care about academic consensus. The foundation is older than the temples. The engineering exceeds Roman capability. The tool marks belong to no known civilization. The Romans weren't claiming credit for the foundation because they didn't build it. They couldn't have built it. They inherited it from builders whose identity has been completely erased from human memory. But here's what makes this story truly unfinished. Researchers recently pointed their equipment downward and discovered the mystery goes deeper than anyone imagined. What lies beneath the mystery cracked open when researchers expanded their radar surveys beyond the visible foundation. The scans revealed additional structures extending beneath the known stones. The platform continues deeper underground than anyone realized. Entire layers of megalithic construction may still be buried, hidden for millennia, waiting for excavation that current funding doesn't allow. What's down there? Nobody knows. The Lebanese government lacks resources for full excavation. International teams can only do limited seasonal work. But here's what we do know. Human habitation at this site dates back at least 9,000 years, 7,000 years before the first Roman soldier set foot in Lebanon. Cultures we have almost no record of were living here, building here, worshiping here. The site was considered sacred by every single civilization that occupied it. Phoenicians called it Baalbek, the city of the god Baal. They believed divine beings descended here. Greeks named it Heliopolis, city of the sun. They associated it with their most powerful gods. Romans built their most ambitious temple complex here, choosing this specific location above all others in the Eastern Empire. Why this place? What drew every civilization across thousands of years to build on this exact spot? There's a pattern here that's impossible to ignore. Every culture that encountered this platform treated it as the most sacred ground they knew, not because of what the Romans added, but because of what was already there when each of them arrived. Something about this foundation commanded reverence across millennia, across languages, across religions, that had nothing else in common. Maybe they all recognized what we're only now being forced to admit. Something extraordinary happened here, something that left behind a foundation no civilization since has been able to explain, let alone replicate. The precision is measured and verified by modern laser equipment. The impossible weights are documented by geological surveys. The tool marks belong to no known civilization. The seismic engineering predates our own by millennia, and the foundation is physically older than every structure sitting on top of it. A civilization advanced enough to cut, move, and position megaliths that dwarf anything in human history once existed. They understood structural engineering at a level we didn't reach until the last century. They built a foundation designed to survive geological ages, and then they vanished. No names, no records, no monuments claiming credit. Just these impossible stones sitting in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, silent, waiting, keeping secrets we may never fully decode. The greatest mystery isn't how they built it, it's what they were building it for. Because by every measure of engineering, scale, and logic, this foundation was never meant for human temples. Drop your theory in the comments. If ancient engineering that breaks modern physics makes your brain itch, smash that like button and subscribe. Because Baalbek isn't the only site where the official story falls apart. We're just getting started.